The Philippines has formally taken over the chairmanship of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Defence Ministers Meeting and its expanded counterpart, the ADMM-Plus, from Malaysia. The transition ceremony held in Kuala Lumpur marked a symbolic moment for regional defence cooperation at a time of heightened geopolitical uncertainty across the Indo-Pacific. Inside the convention hall, flags from the 10 ASEAN member states lined the stage as representatives from partner nations, including the United States and China, looked on. Cameras followed the proceedings closely as Malaysia's Defence Minister Mohamed Khaled Nordin handed over the ASEAN emblem to his Philippine counterpart, Secretary of National Defence Gilberto Teodoro. The event took place under the theme Navigating Our Future Together, emphasising regional solidarity and the shared commitment of Southeast Asian nations to peace, stability and cooperation amid growing strategic competition. During the handover, dignitaries and defence officials from ASEAN member states, as well as representatives from the ADMM-Plus dialogue partners, which include the United States, China, Russia, Japan, South Korea, India, Australia and New Zealand, attended the session. Among those present were US Secretary of Defence Pete Hegseth and Chinese Defence Minister Dong Jun, both of whom maintained formal composure as their delegations observed the ceremonial exchange. Wide shots captured the flag bearers' slow march across the stage, followed by the symbolic handover moment between the Malaysian and Philippine defence chiefs. Applause filled the hall briefly before resuming the protocol sequence that marked the official transfer of responsibility for ASEAN's premier defence dialogue mechanisms. As the outgoing chair, Malaysian Defence Minister Mohamed Khaled Nordin reflected on the year's achievements under Malaysia's leadership. In his remarks, he stressed that ASEAN's unity had been the cornerstone of regional stability, particularly in the face of emerging security challenges.
The success of this year's ADMM and ADMM-Plus is not Malaysia's alone. It is our success, ASEAN's success. It stands as proof that when we come together in unity and purpose, we can achieve great things.
He went on to describe the ADMM and ADMM-Plus as enduring platforms for collective defence dialogue, affirming ASEAN's central role in maintaining peace and preventing conflict through cooperation and mutual trust.
The ADMM and ADMM-Plus are enduring symbols of our collective commitment to ASEAN first, to unity, centrality, and solidarity. As we move forward, we must uphold this spirit by thinking ASEAN, acting ASEAN, and behaving ASEAN.
The phrase thinking ASEAN, acting ASEAN and behaving ASEAN has been a recurring message throughout Malaysia's chairmanship year, reflecting the bloc's continued efforts to reinforce its centrality in regional affairs despite increasing global polarization. Following the handover, Secretary Gilberto Teodoro took the podium as the Philippines assumed the new chairship. With an assured but measured tone, he thanked Malaysia for its stewardship and reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment to upholding ASEAN's unity and cooperative defence mechanisms. He continued, emphasising that the Philippine delegation intends to work closely with fellow ASEAN member states and external partners to sustain a stable regional environment.
In that spirit, I am honoured and humbled to accept the chairship of the ADMM and the ADMM-Plus from our esteemed host, Malaysia. The Philippines ASEAN chairship will be guided by the theme, Navigating Our Future Together. Accordingly, the Philippine delegation commits to working with our fellow member states and dialogue partners towards our shared aspirations for a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Southeast Asia and the broader Indo-Pacific region.
Teodoro's remarks underscored Manila's intention to balance cooperation and sovereignty amid regional security tensions. His statement comes as Southeast Asia navigates a complex strategic landscape shaped by maritime disputes, military modernization, and shifting great power competition. The Philippines' assumption of the chairmanship also comes at a sensitive time. In recent months, tensions have risen in parts of the South China Sea, where the Philippines has increased its assertiveness in protecting its maritime claims, while continuing to strengthen defence ties with the United States and other partners. Within ASEAN, there remains an ongoing effort to finalise a long-discussed code of conduct with China to manage maritime interactions and reduce the risk of confrontation. Under the new chairship, Manila is expected to place renewed focus on defence diplomacy, practical cooperation and crisis coordination within ASEAN and the ADMM-Plus framework. Officials have indicated that the Philippines will seek to enhance maritime domain awareness, cybersecurity cooperation, humanitarian assistance coordination, and joint training exercises. During his closing remarks, Teodoro referenced a statement made earlier by Minister Khaled, which had resonated deeply among ASEAN delegates during the prior day's meetings.
I would like to conclude by referencing the insightful remarks of His Excellency Dato' Khaled in the ADMM yesterday. He said, and I quote, "When one of us is challenged, all of us are being tested too. Solidarity must never be selective. We must extend our solidarity in every situation, especially when regional peace is at stake. For only by standing together can ASEAN remain united."
Those words, echoed once more by the incoming chair, framed the spirit of transition from Malaysia's stewardship to the Philippines' new responsibility to guide the region's defence dialogue into 2026. The ADMM and ADMM-Plus platforms, first established in 2006 and 2010 respectively, serve as ASEAN's highest-level mechanisms for defence cooperation. They aim to strengthen mutual trust, promote transparency, and prevent conflict through dialogue and practical cooperation among the region's militaries. The ADMM-Plus, in particular, brings together the 10 ASEAN member states with 8 key dialogue partners: the United States, China, Japan, India, Russia, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, providing a rare multilateral platform where rival powers maintain direct and regular contact. This year's meeting in Kuala Lumpur was closely watched by analysts and observers, given the increasingly tense regional environment. Maritime incidents in the South China Sea, concerns over military build-ups, and competition in emerging technologies have all tested ASEAN's diplomatic cohesion. Under Malaysia's leadership, the ADMM and ADMM-Plus forums managed to maintain open channels of communication between partners. The focus remained on de-escalation, humanitarian cooperation, and confidence-building measures. Malaysia's outgoing statement emphasized the importance of upholding ASEAN centrality and neutrality, principles designed to keep the bloc independent from external rivalries. The Philippines' assumption of the chair role now places Manila at the center of regional defense diplomacy. Officials in the Philippine Department of National Defense have said the country will emphasize transparency, multilateralism, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. Analysts suggest that Teodoro's leadership will likely focus on advancing discussions in practical cooperation areas such as joint maritime patrols, defence industry collaboration, and disaster response readiness. These are seen as pragmatic pathways to maintain ASEAN's relevance and capability amid rising regional tensions. The ceremony in Kuala Lumpur concluded with a brief photo session featuring the Malaysian and Philippine defence ministers standing side by side with the ASEAN emblem held between them, symbolising continuity and shared responsibility. Delegates from across the region applauded as the national flags were lowered and raised in sequence to signify the orderly transfer of leadership. US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun, both seated among the front rows, observed the event without public comment. Their presence reflected the delicate balance ASEAN seeks to maintain between its two major dialogue partners, the United States and China, whose competition has increasingly shaped the regional security environment. The Philippines' tenure as ADMM and ADMM-Plus chair will coincide with several key regional developments expected in 2026. These include ongoing negotiations on the South China Sea Code of Conduct, renewed discussions on regional defence interoperability, and a planned expansion of joint exercises under the ADMM-Plus experts working groups. In his earlier address, Minister Khaled Nordin had thanked ASEAN counterparts for their cooperation during Malaysia's chairmanship, highlighting the shared accomplishments of the past year. It stands as proof that when we come together in unity and purpose, we can achieve great things, he said. His words were widely interpreted as a message of confidence that ASEAN could navigate a more complex security environment by relying on its collective mechanisms rather than unilateral actions. The phrase, navigating our future together, now adopted by the Philippines, encapsulates the bloc's intent to remain cohesive despite external pressures. Philippine officials have indicated that the upcoming year's agenda will include new proposals to strengthen defence education exchanges, joint exercises for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and cybersecurity frameworks. Regional observers note that the Philippines' defence priorities are aligned with its broader national policy of modernising its armed forces and enhancing its deterrence capacity, while simultaneously engaging ASEAN partners in collaborative mechanisms. Teodoro's previous public statements have consistently emphasised that regional peace must be preserved through cooperation rather than confrontation. His reiteration of Malaysia's message on collective solidarity reinforces the notion that ASEAN's strength lies in consensus and inclusivity. As the ceremony concluded, both defence ministers exchanged a formal handshake before departing the stage. The hall gradually emptied as delegates prepared for a series of follow-up bilateral meetings between ASEAN members and their dialogue partners. For ASEAN, the transition represents more than a ceremonial exchange. It marks a reaffirmation of continuity in regional defence cooperation, one that will now unfold under the Philippines' guidance for the next year. As the Indo-Pacific faces mounting geopolitical tests from territorial disputes to strategic competition and new technological frontiers, ASEAN's to maintain unity and balance will remain a defining challenge. For now, the message from Kuala Lumpur is one of steady resolve. The Philippines, under Secretary Gilberto Teodoro's leadership, has pledged to steer ASEAN's defence cooperation towards shared aspirations for peace, stability and prosperity, a message that aligns with the bloc's enduring mission since its founding. The handover of the ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting and ADMM-Plus chairmanship from Malaysia to the Philippines officially positions Manila as the region's leading defence dialogue coordinator for the year ahead, tasked with safeguarding the principles of unity, centrality and cooperation across a rapidly changing Indo-Pacific. The Philippines now assumes the ASEAN Defence Chairship with a commitment to uphold regional solidarity and ensure that Southeast Asia continues to act and stand as one in the pursuit of peace and stability.